Do you think at the end of the day that this shutdown fight was worth it for Democrats? Was it the right fight to pick to show how they're standing up to Trump?
Oh, I absolutely do, but I disagree with you that the only reason I disagree that the only reason Democrats did that was just to stand up to Trump. I just don't believe that. I think that they truly believe there were going to be millions and millions of people in this country that suffer because of taking away those ACA subsidies. And they wanted to fight for those people, not just against Trump. Now, there are those that like to just fight against Trump. But I do think it was worth it. At the end of the day, they finally realized that there was not going to be, that was not a negotiating point, that Republicans were not going to do it. And so they had to do something to gain whatever they could to get the government back open. But it was those ACA subsidies and the people that were going to suffer that was the real reason behind the Democrats not opening this right off the bat with the promises that they felt like were empty promises.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not saying that was the only reason, but it was, fighting for those health care benefits, showing that they have the stomach to do it, was a big part of the Democrat theory of the case. Steve, do you agree with the Republican leader's approach on this, particularly House Speaker Mike Johnson, keeping the House out of session? Folks are home in their districts. They were not here in D.C., trying to work it out. Was that the right call?
Well, the problem wasn't in the House. The problem was in the Senate. The House is a majority rules institution. They passed a budget. Actually, I think one Democrat voted for it, so it was actually bipartisan. And then they went home, and because they'd done their work. The fight was in the Senate, trying to get to 60 votes, the way our system works. And I will tell you the reason that I believe it's never worth it to shut down the government over a policy difference is I fully expect if the shutdown would have gone on another week, that the nuclear option would have gotten a ton of traction and might have actually happened to take away the filibuster from the budget process. And I generally think that's a bad idea for the country. The Senate, even though it gets me frustrated in serving in the House, is supposed to be the saucer that cools the emotions. And so the filibuster rule, I think, is good for America. It does give the minority some power, and this minority used that power to shut down the government for 40-some days. And I think that was inappropriate, but I don't want to take away the filibuster over it. And I think that's what would have happened if they would have continued on with these demands. And I don't think that's good for America. Every time the filibuster gets removed, it was removed from the confirmation process a few years ago over judges. It never comes back. So I do think it's never a temporary measure, and I don't want to see that go away. That was the next shoe that was going to drop, and then the Senate would become just like the House, and I think even Senator Jones would recognize that's a bad idea.
Yeah, Doug, what do you think about that?
Oh, I totally agree, and I do believe, like Steve, that was a big part of why a number of the senators went along with this right now. I think there were actually probably more senators that were ready, because I also believe the SNAP benefits that the administration was withholding and basically threatening some states. I do think that air traffic controllers and all of the federal workers that were not receiving benefits, I think that all of that came into play, but I certainly believe they were looking down the road. When there was no negotiation on the ACA subsidies, and they were threatening to do away with the filibuster, that had to be on their minds. I don't think it was a coincidence, quite frankly, that there was the exact number of Democrats and then one independent that was needed in order to break the filibuster. I don't think that was a coincidence. I really do believe there were other Democratic senators that ready to give.